Project number 4 is the angle frame. I'll scroll down, make sure you load your project PDF package from the website or from the publisher site, one or the other. So the angle frame is a little more complicated, and this one's supposed to be done after lesson number 7. Take a look at it here. One of the things to note is that we did change the properties of the datum planes. So you have datum plane A here, datum plane B, datum plane C, instead of the front, the top, and the right. And we actually added a datum plane to establish a midpoint of that web. And we also added another one to go along the center of this angled portion of the arm. I'm going to turn on all my datum tags in the View tab. Control D, remember, will return it to the standard orientation. And if we look under the Prepare File, Prepare Model Properties, we'll see that the units are in inches. Material was not assigned. Again, you can pick something different, just so that you get used to doing this each time. And we can click on Tools tab and then Model, get the information. And you can see that the material has been set and the inches is the default. Okay, I'm going to close this browser, and we'll go over to the Tools and Model Player and roll back the model like we did in the previous ones. We'll show that the first 3 datum planes and the coordinate system are the features that are default for when you use the default template. Our first extrusion is a simple circle that's been extruded. Next, we created a second extrusion. These are unconnected. Don't try to do these at the same time, obviously. The other thing is you don't want to, well, you actually could copy and paste it and then change the size, as in lesson number 7. So that's your choice there. Here we offset a datum plane, and we created the web feature, which is the most important in this one. Put an angle datum plane through the axes of the large cylinder and at an angle to the datum plane, which would have been the top datum plane. Next, we built the rib, or I should call it the other portion of the arm, which is the web, second web. And then we did the more complicated end section. Created a hole, another hole, a counter bore, and a slot. So we'll start off by rolling back the model in this case by taking the insert here in the model tree. I couldn't get it to move for some reason. Doesn't want to move. So another way to do this is to take and select, using the Shift key, gather everything and suppress it. It'll go back to the very first. Now you're not seeing the other features because we didn't go and change the tree columns. This is important that you always do this to be able to see everything in the model tree. So you can see these now have been rolled back or suppressed. So our first feature here is very simple. We'll just select it, edit definition, and right mouse button, go into the external sketch, and you can see this is nothing more than a circle with the proper sizes on it. So we're making this first feature cylinder, the first cylinder, the larger of the two. Make sure you pay attention to how far it's extended out. Again, you can always change this. We have 2 inches for that depth. Now the second feature, you'll notice here, and since I didn't roll it back using the insert here, I just click on the second feature and right mouse button, resume. And again, this is nothing more than the exact same command as the first one. Except for the circle was put along the axis here. A certain distance away. I'm going to move that. We have our depth. Second feature, or I should say third, this one is a datum plane, which we're going to offset from the front datum plane. It has become obviously the A datum. And the next one we'll resume, and this is the important one, or at least there's actually 3 important ones, 3 more complicated ones. Right mouse button, edit definition again. Right mouse button, edit internal sketch. And we'll go to the sketch view on this one. It's a little easier to see. Now you'll know if you did this correct, if everything is like it shows here, only one dimension. You have tangency and tangency. You have a closed section. You can see it's shaded. So if I delete this, I would start off with a construction center line. And then I would references, select references. And basically you need a reference here and you need a reference here. And they were already there. I didn't delete them. So you have 2 references. Let's see if I can change the look of this a little bit. It's a little hard to see that way. Again, the reason why it's hard to see is that the shading is not the default. Or I should say the model color is not the default. Therefore, it's not going to look very clear because you're using the color for the edges. Here we're using the whole shade, which is better. Now, what we want to do is we want to connect these two. But the first thing we need to do is we need to go in and we have to get a feature. You could use a circle. You could use an arc. You could use a concentric arc. Depends on how many entities you want to remove. In other words, we're going to put in 2 lines here, one here and one here. Got your center line. But we want to connect these two so it's tangent on one side but not tangent on the other side. So we're not going to pick line tangent. We're just going to pick the line chain. And so for instance, I can put my arc in first. Here I'm just going to put my line in first. Now we know that this tangency is going to be slightly on the other side of the 90-degree quadrant position. You can see there's tangent. Now you'll see what it's doing. It wants to try to stay tangent in that part, and it's going way up here. It's not working very well. So let's start on this side and see if we can find it going in the other direction. So you can see I'm not near the tangency position up here, which would be about there. On this side, I'm going to go over until it locks. Now what I did was I paid attention to staying on the other side of this position right here. This 90-degree position is going to automatically want to lock in. Go a little bit beyond this, the tangency T. Now you can always change in that, but you can put a constraint on it. Now we're going to put one on the very bottom, same thing. And we could also just do half of it and mirror it. But let's go to the line command again. And let's see if we can get it to work. If you notice, as I'm positioning it, the little alignment is green, and it locks up with the one on the top, so it creates an alignment this way. Then we want to come over here and we want to make it so that it's tangent. And you can see it's very easy to make a tangent. It's going to do it automatically. If we clicked out here instead, it's not tangent. T, no T. So under this situation, we would go in and we would go into our constraints and select tangent and pick on the line and the arc, and it'll make a tangent. Now, this is not shaded, so it's not a complete section. So right mouse button. You got 3-point tangent end. The best one here would be to go to the arc command and do center and ends. So you're here at the center, and you're starting at the end of that line. I'm going to zoom up, roll, and you're going to end at tangency point over here. Now you have to do the same thing to the other side. Go arc, click the center. These are easy to find on this side and the other side there. Now, middle mouse button. You see I only have one dimension. I need the full dimension, not the half dimension. So middle mouse button, left mouse button, right mouse button. I want to go down to dimension. And I'm going to click on the 2 endpoints, and I'll put the dimension over here. And I know this is going to be 2. So I know this is going to work. You can see where the plane is, because there's only one dimension and I have 2 tangencies. Right mouse button, OK. And we can see how it is symmetrical, and then of course you pick the size that you want. I'm going to cancel this one out because I've already got it in there. Next we're going to create a datum plane through this axis here. So I'm going to go to my model tab, and what I want to do is first of all let's turn the model. A lot of times in the book the model looks a certain way, so we might as well keep it like that. This is in trimetric. So I'm going to click on datum plane, and I'm going to go over and select the axes, hold down the control key, and select the top datum. In this case it's B. And we're going to move that to the proper angle, which is 30 degrees. So what's important here is that the next feature uses that to position it to sketch. So for instance, what we're going to do is, let's go back to my standard orientation, click on extrude. We are going to define it, right mouse button, define internal sketch, or just define. And we're going to use the previous sketching plane. Sketch setup. Now the problem is we want to sketch along here. So right mouse button, section orientation, set horizontal reference. I want this to be the horizontal reference. Now what that does for us, after we get our references in there, right mouse button, references, use a reference for that surface, and right mouse button, corner rectangle. Now actually in this particular case it'd be better if we did a construction center line first, and then we do the rectangle. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to be careful. I don't want to hit in a position that's not going to work for me. I don't want to accidentally lock it in, for instance, here. So I'm going to go a little bit bigger. And you'll notice I only have one dimension here, and then the length dimension. The reason for this is because I did this correctly with the center line and everything, and I went directly across from here. It's going to give me a symmetric, even though the symmetry isn't showing, it's going to give me only one dimension. I don't have a half dimension. Now you don't want to leave these embedded over here. You don't want to have this. So basically you can come up here and select the arc, and let's try the concentric this time. Just click the outer edge and click where you want to start and click where you want to end. Middle mouse button. Now it didn't shade because it's got two lines inside of each other right now. It's not right. The arc is inside of the rectangle. So we've got to remove this line here. Now you can simply click on it, right mouse button, delete, and as soon as you do, you see you're going to get your shaded section. That's how you complete the first part of the arm. I'm going to go back over to my model and resume the datum plane. And resume the feature that we just created, but this is the old one. Next one is going to go on the end here. I'm going to resume that one and we'll take a look at it. So first of all, be aware that it is going to be sketched on the datum plane, datum A, which is also the front datum. It's not going to be sketched on here. A common mistake is to sketch it on the DTM1, the first offset datum. We're not going to do that. Edit the definition of it. We're going to go into the internal sketch. And notice where it is. It's on that datum plane. Another common mistake is thinking that this edge is going to be used. It's below the edge, so this has to be a closed section. Can't lock it into anything over here and expect it to work. In this view, it doesn't look so complicated. But one of the things to remember here is that we have a lot of references. Right mouse button, references. So we have a reference here, a reference here. Should have had a reference on the bottom, and for some reason I did not. Oh, I know. When I created this, I actually created half the section and mirrored it. If you're going to create the whole thing at once, then you need to have all of these as references. This one, and this one. And you can see those references are on the other datum plane, not on this protrusion. I only have a few dimensions here. A lot of constraints. So, for instance, you would start off with a center line, and you can do a circle, you could do a line. There's a lot of ways to approach this one. So in this case, let's do line chain. Start here, and just go out there at an angle. Any angle is fine. Now, 3-point tangent. Let's try that one. Okay. Now, these two have different dimensions. Even though same size, they've got different dimensions. So we may want to align those. This is one, again, this is only one of about 20 ways you can approach this one. So we want to make them coincident. So this and this are coincident at some point, or equal. We'll leave it like it is right now. You'll see what we're going to do. We're going to add a line here. And you can see midpoint. You don't want a midpoint. Like so. Now, we're going to have an arc over here eventually. This says perpendicular. We can try a couple of things here. We can say horizontal. We say that's got to be horizontal. And you can see we got rid of one of the dimensions by doing that. Now we need an arc. This we know is going to be, let's see what our angle is. It's going to be 15 degrees. I think I'll leave it like, well, let's see what happens. Sometimes if you do the sketch and you make everything the correct dimension at first, it doesn't work very good. This worked okay. This is very different how I approached it the first time. First time when I did this, I actually move this back. I actually did half and then mirrored it, which is the way I'm approaching it now. I can do it the same way. So let's go over and select arc and center ends. So center ends. So center here, how about end here and end here? Now we have 0.41 here and 0.41 here. You really should only have one. And the other two, let's click on line and let's close this up and then we'll work from there. So this is a closed section. And we've got something here. I'm not sure what this is. Oh, that's to the center. Okay. Now, we want to make sure we've got the correct items in here before we start making any changes. Seems like we've got some extra dimensions. This one goes to the center. I think on here we have a very odd dimension going from here to the very tip. So we can add that dimension from this reference to the tip. It doesn't like that dimension. Now the reason is we've got a couple of things in here that are constrained and aren't necessarily what we want them to be. What I want to do is I want to zoom way up and take a look at everything. And then I'm going to go over to my coincident and try to pick up this point and then put it on here. So it says it's on there. So we want it to be point on entity orthogonal. Either one of those should work because it says it's fine. And one of the things you can do when you're excuse me, when you're trying to see what the difference is, why does it say 41 and this say 41? If you double click on this here, and let's just make that 0.5. See what happens. It won't let me do it. So it says it won't do it because it's an incompatible dimension. So we can leave that there. The other dimension that we're missing, though, is to the center point right here. So there's actually a dimension from this point to this point over here. Middle mouse button. So you want to make sure that's a horizontal dimension when you're putting it in there. And as far as our sizes go, let's change some of these. Let's see. Well, it looks like this, if you notice that this dimension here got rid of one of the other dimensions. We can click on one of these and we can see what are the options. This arc here is supposed to be 0.25. And our slot is supposed to be 0.44 radius. Now I want you to see what happened. The tangency is not here, and that's what was wrong. So if we come up here to where it says tangent in our constraints, and we say this and this are going to be tangent. Now we have all the dimensions that we need, no extra ones. And actually, there's a dimension it's calling for. It says we need one from here to here. So from this point to here again. So let's see if we can get that one to go back in and see why it won't let us have it. Oh, we did. It gave it to us. And that one's supposed to be 1385. Now, one of the things you want to do here is you want to window in everything. You come over here to your select and basically choose all the entities. When you do that, you're going to have the mirror tool available to you. Otherwise, the mirror tool is grayed out. You also need a center line for the mirror tool. So we did put the center line in here, like so. Now, the shading went away, so something's wrong. And what's incorrect in this one right here is we've got an extra line in the middle here. Two extra lines. So I deleted both of them, and it shaded it. Right mouse button, OK. Give it the depth that you want. And there's our feature. Now I'm going to undo it back to the original one because I didn't change the dimensions correctly. So the next one is going to be the hole. And let's just take a look and see what that is. So that's basically a standard hole. Clearance. The size is very big, but that's not really that important. We have a countersink, and we have the shape. And actually, I think this should be through all here. That would be much better than giving the depth. What would be the difference? You might make it big enough, but what if you didn't? Yeah, what if eventually you want to make this whole piece bigger and the hole doesn't go all the way through? So in this case here, you want to make sure it's done correctly all the way through. Let's look at it one more time. You can do this a variety of ways. You could have done a revolved cut. You could have done a hole with a sketched hole. Or you can just put it in and use the chamfer here. Countersink. Next hole is on the other side over here, and you should be able to do that by now. A counterbore hole, a little bit, maybe not hard, but a little bit different. You want to make sure when you place this that you set up the dimensioning scheme or references correctly. And take a look at this. So in this case here, why don't we suppress it and put in our own hole. So this is going to be a standard hole, no thread, clearance. I don't care how big it is, just pick anything. It's going to be through all, and it's going to be a counterbore. And then we have our shape here. So here's where you can plug in your dimensions, whatever they happen to be. So let's say 0.6. I'm just going to guess at the dimensions, truthfully. The depth, let's make it 0.25. I know these aren't like the book, but we're just putting some dimensions in there. No countersink coming out the other end. But right now, we're still missing its placement. So we want to place it here, and then we want to get references for its location. So where should we go? We want to take one of these green, this will be one of the references. And basically, you can click in here to offset references and just then select it. Or you could have dragged the green handle over to one of them. So here's my hole. The problem is it could be anywhere. We want it to stay on that datum plane. So we click where it says offset, go down and click align. Now it locks it into it now. And there's my hole. Last one here is the slot. And this one is relatively simple also. I'm going to go up and do it the long method, get it to edit it and sketch view. So basically, this is one dimension and then a dimension locating it. So we have the arc dimension, which is traditional for a slot, the distance from the reference here. Now we have another distance here. Now if we need the dimension in between, which seems to be a better dimension, truthfully, 0.175, let's fix the model. And change it. edit it. And our distance over is 213. These dimensions on this drawing were rounded. This is actually supposed to be 2.125. Doesn't make any difference for us personally in this situation. We're learning how to model. If the dimension's a little bit off, it's not a big deal because we can at any time just double click on it and change it and then regenerate the model. So when you're done, make sure you put it in your standard orientation. Save the model, save a copy, make a PDF, 3D PDF, email it, your part, to your instructor, or upload it on your course interface if that's the way your school is using it. This concludes the angle arm.